I've always enjoyed your thoughts on the UFO phenomenon because I think you're a realist about it. You're more data driven. You've expressed that you believe there's almost a statistical impossibility that there is not intelligent life out there. It's just a question of, are the things we're seeing reported as intelligent life here actually what they're reported as, which I think is really fair, because there's also been a lot of speculation, righteously so, I think, by a lot of people, that the things we're seeing are products of super advanced intelligence related technology, not always necessarily our own, but yeah, certainly DARPA or CIA at the front end of that. So, having done season 1, what do you want? Are you working on season 3?
Season 2 is already live, and I think is aired,
Yep.
and season 3 scheduled.
Okay, so number 1, has your opinion changed or moved at all on that? And number 2, what are you guys going to be focused on and looking forward to in season 3?
So, I really appreciate where you're going with this, and I also really appreciate that you are so accurate and specific in the words that you use to describe my relationship with the phenomenon. Because what I have seen personally is that there is some strange shit that happens that doesn't have explanation. It doesn't have explanation in like normal civilian terms. It doesn't have it defies explanation in known science and known scientific terms. Equipment gives results that don't make sense according to how the equipment is supposed to work. I mean, and then of course on top of that, there's a whole world of secrets that we don't have access to. But even as we take this to my network of FBI, CIA, NSA, police, even as we expand and ask questions in my own personal network, the feedback that continuously comes back is that they are also stumped. So there really is something strange. There really is some kind of phenomenon that is consistent, is measurable, is witnessable, and is happening in our planet's atmosphere, right? And sometimes that phenomenon happens underground. Sometimes that phenomenon happens on the surface. Sometimes that phenomenon happens in the sky. Now, after being through 2 seasons of investigating high strangeness with the Skinwalker team and the Beyond Skinwalker effort, I am more convinced than ever that there is something happening. I am not any more convinced that it is alien in nature, but I am more and more confident that it does defy science as we understand science today, right? Energy signatures, transient physical evidence, like somehow you can see gaps in GPS data, gaps in geospatial data, gaps in energy returns. Like, it's the strangest thing, man. And nobody can explain it. Experts in their field can't explain it. Technical experts with the equipment can't explain it. Physicists, astrophysicists, like scientists can't explain it, but it happens and it's consistent, not everywhere, but in certain places. So why the hell is it that when I'm in a strange ranch in southern Colorado, I see the same weird shit that I see in the mountains of Nevada, but I don't see either of, like, those 2 things are consistent. But then when I go to someplace in Tennessee, we don't see shit. How does that happen? How is it that I can go one city over, I can go one national park or one state park over to where the terrain is exactly the same, granite rock to granite rock, but energy signatures are different, geospatial data is different, magnetic anomalies are different. How does that happen, right? And why does that happen? I don't think that it's alien. The proof that I'm seeing is not that it's alien, but the proof that I'm seeing is sure as hell that it is fucking weird. It's fascinating, and it shows the untapped advantages that a weapon system could get if it could figure out this science. And I gave you a lot right there. I don't know if it all made sense, because in my head, I'm reliving the investigation. And season 2 goes through a lot of that. And anybody who watches season 2 on History Channel or streams it Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, you're going to see exactly what I'm saying. There's so much strange shit that happens in our country that we don't even understand, that defies the laws of science as we understand them, the laws of physics as we understand them. And it stumps not just me as a CIA officer, but a whole range of experts that I've talked to.
Gun to your head, would you say it's super advanced like DARPA technology?
I don't know if I would give DARPA the credit, but I would say that the 60-40 of what we're seeing is either advanced technology or, this was really crazy, super old technology that we found a way to do better. Balloons, sea drones, unpowered passive devices, right? That kind of stuff.
What do you make of all the patterns, though, of people who have, around the world, who have claimed to have witnessed something? And again, you know, you hear a lot of people now, they'll come up, they'll say, I'm an experiencer. And maybe somebody is, but the vast percentage of people is probably something different. But when you look at, say, the patterns that James Fox, who's been on the show, has created with the history of it since the 1940s, be it from China, Russia, United States, Australia, Africa, South America, all over the map, where they report the similar things. Small creatures, similar beady eyes, similar colors, craft described in often the same ways, a form of telepathy that happens for people that have encounters of the third kind. That's the right term, right, Alessi?
The fourth kind.
It's, fourth kind, right, where it's like everything all together. You know, I guess there's a possibility, well, there's certainly a possibility some people are lying, but when you see all these different people from so many different places who, before the internet, when these things are happening, had no ability to communicate with each other, what do you make of that?
So there's something very real there. There's two things that I've been able to actually see for myself and measure for myself. First, experiencers are having real experiences. From their point of view, with their 5 sensory organs, right, their eyes, their nose, their ears, etc., they're having a very real experience. But all a sensory organ is a series of electrical patterns to the brain. So just like we can simulate if you touch freezing cold water on a hot day, the first sensation you actually have when you stick your finger into the cold water is a burning sensation, because that's how the body interprets the sensation, right? Same thing happens if it's a freezing cold day and a lukewarm pool of water. As soon as you touch it, it feels super hot. That's just an electrical impulse. So it's not that what you see is really what you see or what you hear is really what you hear. It's that your brain is interpreting electrical signals and translates those electrical signals into sensory perception. So what's wild to me is a lot of the experiencers that I've spoken to have had very real experiences, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what they experienced actually happened to them the way that they experienced it. They may have been touching cold water on a hot day, and what they experienced was burning. So that's what's so fascinating to me, because one of the things that we have absolutely been able to measure is that in areas where highly strange phenomena have happened, energy readings are all over the map. Electrical energy readings, magnetic energy readings, gravitational energy readings, all over the place. So we really could, like, for all intents and purposes, you could stand in one place and you don't smell anything and it feels like a 70-degree day. And then you stand 6 feet in a different place, and now all of a sudden you smell oranges and it feels like a 90-degree day, right? Like, that's the impact of energy on your body and on your brain and how your brain interprets events. So when you think about true experiencers, if they're just temporarily co-located in an area where either a extraterrestrial phenomenon happened or a very terrestrial phenomenon happened with high energy readings, the experience could be the same. See what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I think that there's still a little bit of an open-ended argument as to the exact how many data points across how many years and how many places, like just statistically from like an anomaly perspective.
For sure.
How much that lines up. And it makes you think, because, you know, people's heads go to, are these different governments trying to put out misinformation and stuff like that? And that's a fair question to ask. But then you look at the people who are coming out, and some of them smell government-y and other people don't, you know?
It can be both. That's what I'm saying. It can absolutely be both. It's not an either-or argument, right? It can be terrestrial and natural, and it can be government-related. Because what has the government always done? When it was like the 1920s, the government found where nature created forests, and then it started cutting down trees. It went to the place where nature created gold reserves and gold ore, and then it started mining operations. So why would we not think that if the government found a vortex of energy that could have benefit to aeronautical aviation technology or weapons technology or free energy, right?
Yep.
Whatever, fusion, fission, whatever.
Yep.
If they were to find one of those locations, wouldn't they go there? Wouldn't they also try to cover it up? Wouldn't it also be a place that has its own measurable differences against every place else? And wouldn't people in the surrounding area also have experiences that were related to the incredible amount of energy or the unique geology of that location?
Okay.
So I am more and more convinced that there's a terrestrial explanation for what most experiencers see. But here's the thing that's so interesting, especially if there's a terrestrial explanation for it, intelligent life from another planet would most likely identify those anomalies here when they did a scan of our planet. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yes. I agree.
Why would, I mean, if you were just, every time we fly in a plane, we do this. You fly over something. You fly over the flyover states. You look out your window. You see like rocks and desert. Not that interesting. But as soon as you fly over a city and you see the lights and you see the glow and you see the infrastructure of the roads, now it's more interesting. So you're flying over a wide patch of Earth and you're choosing what to focus on based off of something of interest in the landscape.
Yeah, I've always, and I love playing devil's advocate on everything around this topic because it is so unknown and there are so many possibilities here. And one of the things I've always brought up is I'm like, first of all, we can't put ourselves in the shoes of a highly advanced intelligent civilization who knows shit that we don't. That's number one. But if we could at least accept the fact that they just know a lot more and then use our imagination to say, so they could probably time travel or crazy shit like that. I've always wondered how they wouldn't have simulated all these things to happen if they're true, like these different sightings. Here's what I mean by that. People are like, oh, well, if they're happening all over the place, why everyone's got an iPhone? How come we're not catching it up close or something like that? And I'm saying maybe when you see, for example, the Zimbabwe incident in 1994, where this was in the middle of, the brush out in Zimbabwe, specifically by an international school where there were a bunch of 6-year-old kids playing, and that's it. Maybe an intelligence advanced civilization would have simulated, we want this one to crash or land there or whatever, so these 6-year-olds can see it and we can play, Sims with how that affects what they say to the rest of the world and how the world views the potential phenomenon as like a psychological experiment, if you will, as opposed to having the same craft land in the middle of fucking New York City where 7 million people see it all at once and are like, oh my God, they're here. You understand what I'm saying? Like, isn't it possible that if they're so powerful to have all these possibilities, they don't necessarily crash? It's more like it could be planned out as a simulation.
I think it is. I think anything is possible. But one of the things that is also becoming increasingly clear to me in my Beyond Skinwalker investigation is that one of the major flaws that happens when we talk to experiencers, one of the major flaws that highlights to me that an experiencer is not as genuine is when they become hyper-focused on the fact that an alien life is interested in human life. Why do we think that an advanced civilization of aliens would give two shits about human beings?
You're making the Neil deGrasse Tyson argument.
Why? Why do we think that they would care about us? We're inferior because they're super advanced and civilized, right? We don't make up a large contingent of what the Earth is.
What do you mean by that?
Like human beings aren't as prevalent as, say, trees or water or oxygen or nitrogen.
We're way smarter and way more interesting.
Not to them. Why do we think we're interesting to them? What makes you think that you're more fucking interesting than a dolphin to an alien?
Well, let me ask you this.
Because we make cities?
If we were able to fly over...
Ants make cities.
If we were able to fly over a world back 6,000 years ago with pre-Babylon, pre-Egypt or whatever, and see these ancient civilizations, you don't think that our current society, if we had the ability to do that, would be interested in those people who are, in most degrees, completely not advanced to us?
I think that there might be an interest, but does that mean that's what you went for?
What do you mean?
If we created time travel, this is a great mental experiment.
Yeah.
If we created time travel so that we today could go back in time to the past, if we spent the hundreds of trillions of dollars to invent that technology, do you think we would spend our time researching people? Or do you think we would spend our time and money mining resources or planting seeds that we would then cultivate, in the future? We would find some way to make something much more valuable than fucking watching people.
But that's
anthropology and tracking people. Like, look, biology is one of the least funded sciences in the world right now. People just don't care about temporary living creatures. Zoologists know that. That's why they struggle all the time to get funding. Anthropologists know that. That's why they all end up as waitresses, right? People don't care about there is no value in understanding a civilization or a human being or the biology of a human being or how they all interact. There's no scalable value there if you're going to take on the expense of launching some sort of widespread mission or campaign or operation to explore something new.
Now, what if, though, instead of it being an advanced civilization from somewhere else, what if, due to dimensionality that we currently can't understand here and now, right now, these are actually future humans who are the spawn of us, who have figured out a way to circumnavigate dimensions and time to come back and observe us. They are essentially, therefore, observing the seeds that became the tree that they are. Is that not?
Why would they do it? Why would they do it? Why would they come back?
What if they could change the river of time?
That's not observing. That's not observing.
But you're there doing that. It's not that you're observing, but that's why we see them, because they're here trying to do that.
But you're interfering. That's a possible what if. It could be some future version of us that's coming back and meddling in the past to create a future scenario or an alternate timeline or whatever else. Absolutely. All of those things could happen. If anything, one of the results that has been very consistent in the research that I've done with the Skinwalker Ranch folks is that there is a question of time. That actual devices that measure the passage of time respond differently in these various areas where there's energy anomalies.
Can you translate that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll give you the simplest example in the world, right? Two stopwatches set with the same standards of the same make of the same model. One sits on a table in an area that has no anomalous energy effects. One is attached to a balloon that floats up 5,000 feet into an area where there is an energy anomaly. And when you bring it back down from the balloon and you put it side by side, they read time differently by 7 seconds.
What the fuck is that called again? There's a name for that. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a name for that. We talked about that on another podcast. I see what you're saying.
So if that can happen in a 3-acre area of space by being 5,000 feet different, to be 7 seconds different, the only place where we've measured that kind of time lapse is the difference between being on Earth and being in space moving at speed. And even then, it's only a few seconds, right? So how in the world does that happen here on Earth in an area of strangeness?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
No explanation for it. But it highlights that time, or the tools that we use to measure time, can somehow be affected, whether it's electrical signals or whether it's something else, whether it's somehow atmospheric or mechanical or who knows what. Like I don't have an explanation for it, but I've seen it, and I've seen it multiple times in multiple places. So again, if I was the CEO of a company that developed a time machine and I had the chance in the future to go back in time, all I would think about as a human being is, how do I make this successful politically, economically, financially? There'd be some justification other than, I really want to go back and observe human beings. I really want to go back and observe dinosaurs. No, I want to go back and I want to, I want to identify an area where there's massive coal reserves that I know are going to turn into massive diamond reserves by right now.
Which in the defense of what we're discussing right now, we're talking about the same ends via different means, potentially. Is that fair to say? Because you're saying in that way they'd still be here, but they wouldn't give a fuck about us.
Right.
They give a fuck about this. And
Right.
I'm saying, all right, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe they do give a fuck about us. But either way, they're potentially here.
Correct. It could be. That is a solid
Okay.
what if. I think that, the idea that intelligent life came back to see us, solid what if. The fact that it's human beings in the future coming back to see us, solid what if. There's a lot of what ifs that are fairly solid, right? But it's when you start to dig into the why is what makes it fall apart. And when you start to think that the reason they came back was to observe us, that why really falls apart. Because if you're an alien civilization and you're exploring the universe, what's so interesting about human beings? Not that much. What's interesting about the planet as a potential resource pool to allow you to continue to expand your expansion across the universe? Much more viable. Just think about how human beings go into look at farmland. We go to new ranches and new swaths of land thinking about what we could build there using it as a resource. We don't think about the field mice that live there and the ants that live there and the transmigrating birds that go through there in the fall.
The transmigrating birds.
We don't fucking care about that shit. We're like, there's 35 acres. I could turn that into a parking lot.
Eminent domain. No, and again, people don't want to hear some of the things that guys like you will say on this. And some of that's also just because of your job title, to be honest. But like, you got to look at this with some logic. And even if I'm not buying some arguments, you have to realize this entire topic is quite literally a hashtag, we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
So you can't sit here and say, well, it's absolutely got to be this, or, well, they would absolutely think like this. We don't know that. We can look at the data we have, and that also, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, but this is a topic that people have thought about forever. Like if you look at ancient history and stuff, they think about, oh, what's up there, But in pop culture per se, it was more of a culty topic, or like underground topic, if you will, forever within America. And then that narrative really started to shift to a more mainstream, if you will, attitude towards it in 2017, because Christopher Mellon was able to legally walk out of his job at the Defense Department and give information that he was legally allowed to give to the New York Times, makes this whole story about UFOs. Then guys like the former head of the ATIP desk, Lou Elizondo, come out. They talk about this stuff. There's a few things there too. And then you eventually get to David Grusch coming out, who, came from the Air Force background and had access allegedly to all this information that was highly classified about potential sightings or things that were recovered. Again, it's not like he brought out the proof of that, but discussed at length the files that he allegedly saw. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, on the one hand, let's say this was an intelligence op. And let's say they were covering for technology they didn't want people to know about. That makes sense to me. But are there other possibilities that I'm not thinking of besides like, oh, it's actually real and they're out of the goodness of their heart doing this? Are there other intelligence-related things that they could be doing that for as a cover that you can think of?
You mean the whistleblowers?
Yes.
Any intelligence-related reason why they would be sharing the information?
Yes, to cover for something besides what I'm thinking of, which is like advanced technology they don't want us to know the government has.
So are you saying that the whistleblowers are orchestrated, not genuine?
I'm saying if they are. I don't know.
If they are. So the way I see your Lou Elizondos and your David Grushes of the world, most likely if they were part of a sensitive program, they were in a very compartmented piece of a large sensitive program. Okay. I have worked with people who have been assigned to Area 51. I have worked with commanding officers who have been given commands over experimental locations. And it's so heavily compartmented that even the commanders don't know the things that happen under their command until after they are there and after something is so relevant that they have a need to know about the thing that they're commanding.
Right.
Their job is really just to make sure that super secret room number 1 is funded and has staffing and has security protocols in place. You're not allowed to actually know what's happening in super secret room number 1 because even though you're the commander of the building, you don't have that need to know. So it's so heavily compartmentalized. Yes. So if they were involved in a sensitive program, they were probably part of a highly compartmentalized column inside of a larger program. So when they see what they see, there's so much more that they don't see. So then when they don't have a context for what they're putting together. So when they come out and they blow a whistle on what they did see, there's all sorts of stuff that they did not see, that they did not have access to, that they're essentially assuming or defining or whatever else, right? But they didn't have access to it. And that's by design. So they could believe that they were part of a program that, and there were other things going on that they did not themselves witness, but they did witness this one piece, and that could be what they're sharing. They could also be they could be believers themselves and be overstating or overblowing their own experience.
To the YouTube reviewers who are reviewing this episode, all subject matters discussed herein are strictly discussed in an educational context. We show absolutely no imagery or video of war or sensitive events of any kind, so we are fully in compliance with the monetization procedures such that we are not showing sensitive events or anything like that. I've had Andy in here for 5 episodes in 2022 and 2023. They are all fully monetized, and we also discuss all kinds of geopolitical struggles around the world in those, just like we did in this one. So thank you for your attention to this, and enjoy the rest of the episode. What did you think of what David Grusch was saying?
You know, the whole Grusch example, it didn't sit right with me. I didn't feel like what he was talking about was could be corroborated by a second or third source. It was just him speaking about it from his own experience. Even worse to me is that a lot of what we get was coming through a lens of media, not coming directly from him himself. And media was getting all sorts of details about his background wrong, from what service he was in to what his job was to what his career was. Yeah. So if they're getting those details about him wrong, which are easily documented and easy to track down and easy to vet and verify, then how much of the actual information that he's saying are they also getting wrong? Yeah.
So Jesse Michaels has a show called American Alchemy, which is really incredible on YouTube, and he's works in the Teal office and everything. I might have been telling you about him off camera, but he's eventually going to be on this podcast. I've had a chance to talk with him a bunch. Really good dude, but he was like the first guy to get the interview with Grusch. He's known Grusch for I think years at this point, like 3.5, 4 years, and I really want him to explain it when he comes on my show, because he can explain how he views it a lot better than I can. But my takeaway from what he said is that he felt, as someone who's not in the government, to be clear, he felt that Grusch basically had access. There were too many kernels of information that he was able to get, whether you believe it or not, that's a separate question, to be able to say that it was a planted story for someone on the squirrel route who's curious to pick up like him. He's like, there were too many things that he got to, including evidently like witnessing actually seeing like some of the evidence itself. So do you think that, whether it's Grusch or someone else though, do you think that there could be systems in place where higher level forms of the government intelligence want whistleblowers to pick up some kernels of information that it's like bullshit they put there so that they can push a narrative? That's like 2D chess.
Yeah, right. It's the idea that there's some sort of planned conspiracy of...
I didn't call it a conspiracy.
What you explained was a conspiracy, right? That elements in power would plant seeds in people who might be whistleblowers so that they would intentionally go out and spread incorrect information. That is basically the definition of conspiracy, right?
I accept your definition.
But so I come from a world where I very much believe that you cannot attribute to conspiracy what can be explained with idiocy, right? That's one of the two laws of analysis. When people come out and say something, when whistleblowers come out and claim what they believe or what they're so convicted about, going back to Snowden, right? They're certain that they're right and the world needs to know. They don't have all the information. And by definition, when you're inside government, when you're inside secret government organizations, you never have all the information. That's how the government protects itself from having somebody like a real whistleblower come out and give all the keys to the kingdom, like we call them, right? All the secrets at once.
Right.
So if people like your contact at is it American Alchemy?
Yeah, Jesse Michaels.
So like if someone of Jesse's experience is saying it doesn't smell right, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, maybe it's a duck. If it doesn't smell right to him.
Well, no, he's saying it does. He's saying that Grusch couldn't have been the quote unquote planted squirrel to get that information because he got to too much. That's his argument. Doesn't mean he's right, but that's his argument.
So yeah, the idea of a plant, and people accuse me of being a plant too.
All the fucking time.
And that's fine. They're all fucking stupid. If you think I'm a plant, you're pretty fucking stupid.
You're a very talented plant. You grew with very fine branches and leaves.
I saw somebody, dude, there's something really fucking wrong with the world when people make videos about why you're a plant.
Yeah.
And there are videos out there about why I'm a plant.
I don't think you're a plant.
I appreciate that.
I don't.
That's because you know me well enough.
I do think there is a possibility that certainly, perhaps indirectly, a person of your incredible skill set could absolutely still be an asset to the government in other ways. But one of the main arguments I'd make against all the people out there like, oh, this guy's a psyop and shit, is you say whatever the fuck you want. And I can speak from personal experience, and I'll leave it at that you say a lot of shit that CIA isn't too happy about.
Right.
And so I don't see that argument. Like, if people actually listen to what you said, I don't see that argument. They'll just point to say the argument of like Edward Snowden and be like, look at that company man.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, but what about the next 10 things he said?
Yeah.
So I do think that's totally unfair. But listen, there's been a break in trust in there between government and people well beyond just
Forever.
the CIA
Oh, yeah.
for a long time, but especially over the last 20 years or so. That I get why people's heads go to that. I understand where they're coming from, and they don't have to agree. They have people out there listening, you have every right to have your opinion, but my opinion is different than that, and obviously your opinion publicly is different than that.
So the idea that the government would make a plant, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Ever.
If the government's going to make a plant, how would they act? I mean, planting here's why I'm having such consternation over this. When you cultivate a plant that's witting, meaning they know that they're a plant, they know their job is to go out there and communicate a certain message, you always run the risk of blowback if the plant goes upside down or backwards, if they change, if they turn suit and then
but then you just kill them.
Administratively challenging.
Oh, yeah, there it is again. That's an admission. You didn't think you were going to get that one by me. Come on.
So that's the big, I mean, it's a huge expense with a massive risk of blowback, and you can't control the actual message that comes across because you don't know what the actual voice, the representative, is going to say. So plants are super dangerous, man. It's hard to put plants in governments. It's hard to put plants in economic or corporate espionage. It's hard to put plants anywhere. It's hard to put your faith in a human being to go do a job when you don't have close enough power over them that you can actually like twist the bolts and tighten the wires when you need to. It's too dangerous. We've been down that road pre 9/11 especially, and it didn't work out well. So
how so?
Like the idea of trying to get a sympathizer into a circle of influence, whether you're talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis or whether you're talking about, the OSS in World War II, or whether you're talking about, the behind the Iron Curtain, it's hard. It's hard to plant one of your own into an organization. It's much easier to find somebody who's already there and then just amplify their voice or take advantage of their purpose.
Okay, I could see that. So
to your point, right? I understand that I am one of the few voices out there that, while critical of CIA, I also do not talk about the CIA as being some sort of corrupt secret organization that's trying to undermine American freedom. Most of the voices out there that are former CIA are just talking about how incompetent and corrupt CIA is. So if CIA has a relationship with YouTube, right? I don't know if they do or not. I would imagine that they do. But I can see how CIA might be like, hey, YouTube, kick the algorithm in his favor a little bit and kick the algorithm off of somebody else's favor, right? Because because this person generally speaks about CIA in negative terms, and Bustamante generally speaks about CIA in less negative terms.
So that's low touch planting.
And well, that's not even a plant. That's just tweaking of information. Not to mention the fact that most of the people who are actually reviewing your YouTube content for covert influence are former intelligence themselves. You know what I mean? Or it could also be that the content that you create with me just happens to be interesting content that people organically watch. Let's like when you think about Occam's razor, what's more likely? Right? When you think about Hanlon's razor, what's more likely? That there's a great conspiracy or that the content is just popular?
There are aspects of that I think I would agree with, and in some ways are irrefutable. Where I run into an issue with pointing at the different razors, if you will, is that you can then take the argument to use it every time. Meaning, I'm just gonna make up percentages. Let's say Occam's razor says, 99% of the time it's this. Every time an individual story comes up, you can say, oh, this is one of the 99, and never say the 1%, which, it's hard to guess the 1%. That's the needle in the haystack, right? And I know that exists. And your point about, by the way, it's easier to cultivate people who are already within. I completely agree with that. And I also agree that like the whole planting thing is way harder than like the general public out there likes to make it. I don't think it doesn't exist, though. I think we've proven that it exists. I might believe you if you're saying, especially in the current technological landscape, it's been harder to do that post 9/11 and post tech boom. I might buy that, but it can exist essentially.
Anything can exist. Yeah. It's like what we were talking about when we were discussing UFOs, right? There's a possibility, but the probability is the real question.
Okay, fair enough. Well, the one that people have been looking at as like, okay, where's the intelliness on this is the whole Diddy thing. So I even had Trap Lore Ross in here, who's like the preeminent hip hop historian, documentarian on YouTube, just eats, sleeps and breathes this shit. But he obviously is in the process of reviewing all the civil lawsuits that have occurred. We don't have indictments yet on Diddy, but if you read the civil lawsuits and if even half of that's true, it's horrible and it's a mess. And when you look at his history, we don't have to go through the whole thing, but he was suddenly, out of nowhere, powerful at age 23 in charge of what became the biggest rap label in America, like very quickly. So, and there's questions about the people who got him in there and everything. But, when you look at a guy who I personally view as, if it had an intel angle, he was a useful idiot rather than, because, I mean, he's not the brightest bulb. Let's just be honest here, right? Like, if you look at a guy who maybe as a useful idiot had fucking 100 cameras in every room, cameras in the pens and stuff, very Epstein-y, if you will. Could you see why people out there are saying this has to be some sort of, I don't know who, but some sort of government-backed op?
P. Diddy had more money than you can get the government to give for any kind of op. So
not before he was put into power, though.
The whole idea of him being put into power is kind of a silly conspiracy on its own.
Why? He wasn't smart. He had really proven nothing in the industry and suddenly was in charge of Bad Boy Records, biggest thing ever.
So I don't...
And his star was gunned down within 3 years. His key moneymaker was gunned down in 3 years.
I don't know the answer, man. I don't keep up closely with anything in pop culture. But here's what I'm saying. If Intel was going to be, if CIA was going to be involved, it wouldn't be involved in a domestic, unknown, unproven rapper in the 90s, 80s?
I didn't say when CIA, did it all start? By the way. I want to be clear about that.
Whoever, right? If U.S. government was going to somehow get funding, you think it's foreign government?
Like, I think it could be.
If any government was going to try to build influence, it wouldn't try with what you just painted to be quite a loser, right? It wouldn't start with somebody who's unproven, who's got no skills, no background, no connections, and then try to build that person up. That's not how it works. That's not how any good op works. You find somebody who's already on the rise. You find somebody who's already established. Like, you don't bet on a losing horse, especially not with big, big money, in the hopes that 15, 30 years from now, it's going to pay off in some sort of intelligence world.
What if he's the in, though? And it's more the people around him are the people who are maybe more reliable, but he's the in because he's the face of it. Again, the useful idiot is how that's
an access agent. What you're talking about is an access agent. A useful idiot is somebody like fucking, what's his name, that did the interview with Putin?
Tucker?
Tucker Carlson. That's
He's
a useful idiot. Oh, that whole interview he had with Putin. All that interview did was take Vladimir Putin and give him a pedestal with the entire conservative part of the United States. And Putin could sit there and say whatever he wanted to say, and he could look strong, and he could look eloquent, and he could look intelligent, and he could look confident. He could choose what the talking points were that he talked about, and he had a voice to the entire conservative nation. That was a brilliant move on Putin's part.
Are you saying Tucker lost the moment he walked into the room?
100%. The moment he showed up, he lost. And then if you want to have a fucking phenomenal conversation, we should just take that whole interview play by play and disassemble it. It's all one giant, powerful influence campaign.
Putin's a master, man.
He's awesome to watch.
You can't argue that.
He's awesome to watch and just incredibly skilled. So Carlson was the avenue by which Putin could get to the Republican or the conservative base of the United States. That makes Tucker the useful idiot.
I see what you're saying.
That's what a useful idiot. An access agent is more of what you're talking about. Somebody who has a connection with people, and if you want the connection that they have, you have to go through them to get the introduction. But once you get the introduction, you kind of cut them out.
So you think that, and this could be a perfectly fair opinion, by the way, because I don't fucking know, but if you were looking at it, you would say Diddy's more of just a sick fuck.
I mean,
it's a more likely scenario.
I think there are a lot more sick fucks out there than people realize.
I would agree with you there.
And the more money you get, and the more confidence, the more fame, the more fan base that you get, the easier it is to execute on your sick interests, because you have the money to cover it up. You have a line of people who are willing to experiment with you. You have more connections with more people who are wealthy like you. And guess what? They all have too. Their own sick interests.
Yeah.
Like, this is just human nature.
So blackmail would be human nature as a part of that too? It could be.
Yeah. I mean, human beings are fucking horrible creatures.
I knew it was coming.
It's what we are, right? When we were kids, what did we do when we found an insect? You pull off its legs, you pull out its wings, you burn it with a magnifying glass, unless he's nodding his head. Yeah. It's what you fucking do.
I didn't do these things. I just want to be really clear.
Would you like to verbalize the sick things that were unique to you? Because you can share those if you like, I'm sure. Are you one of the people...
Pulling off animal legs and
shit? Are you
shit?
one of the people that looks at your own poop? Is that what you are? Are you one of the people...
I've looked at my own shit before.
Are you one of the people that maybe smells your toenail clippings? Are you one of those people?
They have a smell?
Just people have weird tendencies that you could not imagine. There's stuff that makes it so that, like, the guy, like, dude, just look at how many varieties of there are. And that gives you an idea of how and that's only sexual, and they're not even perversions. Those are just a variety of sexual interests. We're not even in like sexual perversions or illegal sexual perversions, and that's all within the realm of sex, not the realm of pain or the realm of deception or the realm of physical abuse. Like, you can imagine how much sickness there is when it comes to the way that human beings find things curious, because that's what we're really talking about, is just curiosities that are labeled to be sick because we live in a world of right and wrong.
Right.
So do I think that it's more likely that some foreign government identified a 23-year-old black hip hop artist who was in charge of a label that was failing and turned him into a powerhouse artist who became
executive, but
so powerful or whatever else, right? Do I believe that? Or do I believe that somebody just worked their ass off, climbed the chain, and then as they had more and more success, to deal with the stress of their success, they leaned into their own curiosities as escape mechanisms to cope with the stress that they were carrying. and funded those stress coping mechanisms with the profit that they were generating.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna have a question on this. I want to say this though, because it's worth saying. Because I think it's part of what drives my antenna going up on this. There was someone who made a comment to me. God, this was like 9-10 years ago. Not the kind of person you'd ever expect to be hanging out with Diddy, put it that way. And he would definitely tell you he went out of his way not to do that. And the reason I say that is because he very offhand said something along the lines of, if you get invited to a Diddy party, you don't go. And I didn't think anything. I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, because I always thought he was a bad dude, right? I always thought that. I didn't know what this fucking lawsuit was going to show me. I didn't have any inkling of that. Maybe I should have if I listened to the comment, but just the way that this guy, and knowing who he is and how he said it, in hindsight, it's fucking sinister. And it makes me think about it because, like, you've given some really good breakdowns before of possibilities with, like, an Epstein or someone like that. And you've also mentioned very correctly that, like, yeah, you know about Epstein, there's all kinds of fucking people like this around the world. This is just, unfortunately, it's an ugly world and shit like this happens. But now putting the term you just taught me on it, I think maybe you had said this before and I just kind of missed it. But, like, you've said he may have been a good access information agent because he had access to information on extremely powerful people that different governments around the world could have said highest bidder and we want the info on it. Do you think that's not a possibility with Diddy?
Oh, no, I think it's absolutely a possibility.
Okay.
But here's the thing. That's not unique to Diddy.
Oh, I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What, to me, the thing that's important to understand is what we are seeing now with the information coming out on Diddy and what he did and how he carried out his parties and what information he collected and what his interests were. There's no reason at all for us to think that that's unique. That's just one person in the music industry.
Yeah.
Imagine the film industry, pro sports industry, corporate oil industry, big tobacco industry. You name the industry, right? The rule of thumb at CIA is that every time you catch a mole, you have to assume there's two more. So when you catch a mole, a penetration inside your agency, when you catch a Robert Hansen, an Aldrich Ames, a Jerry Lee, you have to assume there's at least two more. Because the one that you got in, the one that was there, is the one that you caught. And the one that you caught, if whoever's handling them is running at least two so that they can always have informants about the other. So
I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we caught one from the music industry, there's probably two more. And then if there are three in the music industry, it's probably three in the tobacco industry, probably three in the electric vehicles industry. There's probably three in the social media industry. There's probably three in the big alcohol, big beer industry, right? Like, rich people are connected to other rich people. They have rich people problems, which average people can't even fucking conceptualize. Yeah. And to your government intelligence services, why would you talk to a normal fucking person with no value and no access and no network when you could always get your ass in front of a politician, a famous musician, an actor, a senior executive? Like, it's not hard to get in front of one of those people when you are an intelligence officer. And those people are guaranteed to have access to information that can be useful in your own endeavors to collect and manipulate and influence foreign countries, foreign elections, foreign media.
Yeah, no, look, points well taken. And that's interesting that's like the rule. They're putting it in the law of three. So you got three dimensions automatically.
If you catch one, there's two there.
I mean, it's, Kanye West lost his fucking mind 2 years ago when he was saying all that shit. I don't know how much of that you saw, but it was, like, pretty fucking crazy. And, like, I still can't even wrap my head around all the shit he said. However, in the middle of that frenzy, he was saying, because he had no filter on the situation. He was like, yo, it's up with Diddy. He was calling out other names too. And we were all like, what the fuck? He was like, Diddy, you fucking fad, shit like that. We're like, what the fuck is he talking about? And now, you're like, holy shit. And Cat Williams was another guy in 2023 saying, 2024 is going to be a problem for some of these people. And you wonder how many, like, okay, if it's not intelligence related, the fucked up, triumvirate of people, if you will, and whatever is beyond that, you wonder how many guys have just known about this for so long, but, for whatever reason, they can't say anything about it. It's scary because you're right. And like, I feel like you've seen the worst of humanity in what you do, and that I understand that drives how you think about human beings when you say things like human beings are horrible creatures. I don't agree with you, but I agree that there are aspects of humanity that are fucking dark, sadistic, and twisted in ways that our minds don't want to think about or talk about out loud at the office. I get that. But, you see stuff like this, and it's hard not to feel really resigned to that fact sometimes because it's just like I can't even fathom what these people do, and like the fact that a Diddy could exist in the middle of all these people and people know what he does. No one says shit. Blackmail could be a thing, but whatever. I appreciate your points on that. That was some good analysis, but we got to talk about an incoming prediction you've had for a while. Alessi, can you pull up the Did China Invade Twitter account on Twitter?
I've seen this. Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
So
I'm the one doing that.
So I would also like to see the video of where I said China was going to invade Taiwan.
Yes.
Because I don't know that I've ever said China's going to invade Taiwan. I think I said China would take action and move on Taiwan, but I don't think I ever said the word invade. So I want to be proven wrong.
Right,
I want to be proven wrong if I said
let's
invade.
Check that. I remember on Concrete 127 in March 2022, that was the first time you said it. So that's Danny Jones' podcast. And then in episode 97 with me, you said it. And again, I'm not going to, maybe the word invade wasn't used, but
right.
So I'm going to paraphrase conservatively. What you said is that in the build up to the 2024 election, let's use your words, China will take action on Taiwan. So I created this Twitter account where I ask every day, did China invade Taiwan yet? And I type out no.
I appreciate you. Now, Alessi, do me a favor. Look up Chinese meddling in Taiwanese elections, January 2024.
Oh, this happened.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. And do you know what happened? You know the results of that election?
It was like the pro-China party?
Yep. Pro-China party won the legislative section.
All right, let's read this real quick. All right, so Chinese interference in Taiwan's 2024 elections and lessons learned. Go down. Okay, in January 2024, Taiwan elected William Lai as its next president, ushering in an unprecedented third consecutive term of Democratic Progressive Party DPP leadership.
Yep, so pause. DPP, pro-independence. Anti-China, DPP, pro-independence. So the president that was elected is a anti-China president. So continue.
So that's bad for China.
Keep going.
Okay. Throughout the elections, China employed a wide range of tools, including military intimidation, media interference, and economic diplomatic measures in an effort to shape public opinion in Taiwan. China's efforts to sway the election warrant study by Taiwan, the United States, and others to draw lessons for how to limit Chinese influence activities.
So my point to you was that China would move on Taiwan before the U.S. election in 2024. They clearly were, right? And they were using military intimidation, media interference, economic and diplomatic measures, trying to shape public influence through social media, et cetera, et cetera. They did not successfully get a pro-China president in place. But they did get, I don't know if this will talk about it, does it talk about the legislation?
No.
Talk about, so do me a favor and look up who controls Taiwan elections for legislation, right? Which party won Taiwanese?
Type in which party won Taiwanese majority government.
Legislation. Yeah, majority government.
Yep, that's right. Taiwanese majority government. Let's see what we can get here. Okay, no. Oh, let's do election
right there.
results and implications.
Bingo.
Okay. All right, so go down. On January 13, 2024, Taiwan held elections for the presidency and 113-seat legislature, the Legislative Yuan. The run-up to the election drew global attention because of the growing tensions in the Taiwan Strait. Since current President Tsai Ing-wen was elected in 2016, official cross-strait dialogue has been suspended, and there is deep concern about China's growing of gray zone tactics and rising possibility of actual activities. With the election now concluded and Democratic Progressive Party DPP candidate William Lai the victor, all eyes are on the ongoing transition, which will culminate in Lai's inauguration on May 20th. All right.
So scroll down.
Scroll down.
Are there results? So here's what's important.
Oh, yeah. This is what we want. This graph.
Yep.
Let's zoom in on that.
So you can see the DPP. Again, DPP means pro-independence, anti-China.
Okay.
So the party for the DPP, the results by party showed that in 2024, you had fewer than ever, fewer than 2020, fewer than 2016. You had a shrinking majority of anti-China. And you had a growing majority of third-party independent KMT. So KMT is the pro-unification, pro-China party. And if you keep scrolling down, there's the legislation. Take a look at who owns the majority of that. KMT and independents.
Yeah. Now, can we define who the independents are?
The independents are basically people who are not choosing to verbally say that they want an independent Taiwan.
So do you think that this will, whether it's on your timeline or not, do you think this will at some point, this movement culminate in a maybe similar to, what was the fucking...
Hong Kong, man. I've always said that this is going to look more like Hong Kong than Ukraine.
That's a good one.
It's an administrative takeover. Right now, the legislature, so let's compare this to the United States. Inside the United States, when the Congress is Democratic and the president is Republican, how much of the president's policies get passed?
Yeah.
Right. None.
Yeah, not a lot.
That's what happened right now in Taiwan. The president is pro-independence. The Congress is pro-China. And the result of that didn't happen. That didn't happen until 2024 January elections, right? In the lead up of which all of October, all of November, all of December, China was pumping in covert influence, military intimidation, all sorts of diplomatic and non-diplomatic functions to try to sway exactly what's happening here. And then since this election, you've only seen more ramping up of the same thing, because what China has right now is gridlock in Taiwan. That's what they want. Taiwan can't become closer to the United States, has no other option except to become closer to China. And the legislature, all the policy that they're writing is pro-China policy.
Right.
This is exactly what it was like in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, it culminated in a police protest violence. It didn't culminate in an invasion. What Russia did in Ukraine is not proper doctrine for modern day conflict. What China's doing in Taiwan absolutely is.
Money and power.
Money, power, policy. Because if you change the policy, then by the time anybody wakes up, all the policy is different. That's what happened in Hong Kong. Hong Kong they started protesting because they woke up and realized, wait a second, what do you mean we fall under Chinese laws? We're Hong Kong. And then China was like, actually, no, you're not. We've had an army of attorneys working behind the scenes for the last 5 years. And all of your legislators have said that we will now fall under mainland China laws.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I have said this. You've been excited about this for a long time. You started a Twitter account about it.
It's fun.
The whole idea of is China going to invade Taiwan? I really want to know if I ever said those words. Because if I did, it's my bad, it's my mistake, it's my bad choice, and your Twitter account is right. But if what I said is that China's going to move on Taiwan prior to the elections, I'm 100% right.
Yeah, you're mind fucking me with the whether or not you said the word invade. Because there's a lot of words that can be synonyms in there. Mm-hmm. You might have.
Yeah, I might have.
You might have. So if that's the case.
And I'm the first person that wants to know when I'm wrong.
Okay.
Right? I love to know when I'm wrong, because then I know where I shouldn't go.
Are you okay with me editing into this part of the video
100%,
whatever
it was that I
is
said
to find it? Okay.
Because I want to see it.
All right, so that'll be what it is. So edit in now. But you had said that in the lead up to the 2024 election, China was going to take Taiwan.
Correct.
What makes you so certain about that?
So I remain, it's not certainty, it's probabilities. I think it's a highly probable scenario that in the lead up to the 2024 election, China takes a very aggressive military stance on Taiwan. Even better if in 2022, this year, the House, the Congress, and the White House all become controlled by different parties. Now it's a lame duck president in office when China invades Taiwan.
And on the other side, let's give a face like, oh, you were wrong.
Yeah, so here's
oh, you were right.
So here's my fucked up face. Oh, I fucked up, yeah. And here's my result in case I'm right. I'm like, oh, I'm safe.
All right.
Right?
But
it's not over yet, dude. It's not over because, again,
no, there's still time.
if I'm Xi Jinping, he's got all sorts of shit he's got to deal with right now anyways, right? With what's going on in China.
Did he have a stroke, by the way?
I don't know. There's people talking about it. I don't trust any of that bullshit about the health of foreign leaders. I just don't trust it. Okay. Remember when Putin had brain cancer?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the Ukraine invasion? Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't trust that shit. But what I will say is that dude has to be asking himself the question. There's so much turmoil in American politics right now. Like Biden is president, sitting president, already knowing that he's not going to be the next president. We don't know if Kamala Harris.
About that?
Yeah, we don't know if Kamala Harris is going to even be like picked at the DNC. Right. We don't know if Donald Trump is going to be elected as president. We don't know if some other candidate is going to emerge. Holy shit, dude! Like America's got their pants down and their cock in their hand, and we're like playing with ourselves, trying to get ourselves hard right now. It's the perfect time for Xi Jinping to be like, I'm just going to take action right now. I'm just going to do something fucking crazy right now. And who's going to do dick all about it? Right? Is Sleepy Joe Biden going to take military action that Kamala is going to stand behind? Or like, who's going to do? It's everything that the stage is set for any authoritarian leader to make a decisive tactical decision and leave America in the dust right now.
I think your call on that potentially being the playing field, which was what you were insinuating back then, like this is going to be total chaos. I think that's right. I mean, it's total chaos at this point. And you're still, obviously, like, we talk a lot about China in podcasts, which, by the way, you have a new flight now, right?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
I don't know yet. If I do, it's probably going to be earlier, and I probably got to go farther. It's probably going to be out of LaGuardia or whatever.
All right. So can we pause for 1 second, just check that?
Sure.
All right. All right, we're back. Andy does have to go. You have a flight coming out. So thank you so much for doing this as always, sir. We didn't get to the Trump assassination. We didn't get more on China. Reason to have you back soon, but I appreciate always the back and forth. It's been great doing this over the years. We'll continue to do it, and thank you for being a friend of the show.
Dude, my pleasure anytime, and I just want to encourage folks to visit me at everydayspy.com. All of my social media is at everydayspy. I've got some awesome links that I drop here every time I'm with you, brother, so if anybody wants to learn more about me or how I see the world, just go ahead and check on any of those links.
If you want to go share your data with the CIA, go do it.
CIA's already got your data. It's already got your data. Snowden left, remember?
They're already there. All right, everybody. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for watching the episode. Before you leave, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. It's a huge help. And also, if you're over on Instagram, be sure to follow the show at Julian Dorey Podcast, or also on my personal page at Julian D. Dorey. Both links are in the description below. Finally, if you'd like to catch up on our latest episodes, use the Julian Dorey Podcast playlist link in the description below. Thank you. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.